Hey, and welcome back to a new episode of Worlds Collide, the podcast where I talk to people who moved abroad. I am your host, Viktoria, and I'm so glad that you're tuning in today, especially after this short, long break, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so I took some time off because of spring break and a family visit from overseas, and also some study time because of life. You know how that goes sometimes. So in today's episode, my guest is Isabel, and she moved to Spain, and so she's originally from New York. So of course we will talk about this, but we will also talk about her career, because this might be helpful for you as an expat or a person who wants to move somewhere else and you're maybe not so sure where you want to move, or maybe you're drawn to a special place. So Isabel is an astrocartographer. And if you don't know what that is, stay here. We will talk about this because I really had no idea really what it is, but she will explain it. But before I let you listen to the whole conversation, I just want to let you know that there are two ways how you could support this podcast. One is leave a 5-star rating wherever you listen to this podcast, because that will draw more attention to this podcast, and this will get me a bigger audience, and this would be awesome. And then there's another way how you could support this podcast, which would be you could buy me a cup of coffee. You can buy me a coffee if you follow the link in the show notes, or it's just buymeacoffee.com/worldscollidepod. And you could just chip in whatever amount you want, like $2 or $3, just enough to buy me a cup of coffee, really. And therefore I would stay super energized and motivated to keep on recording more episodes, because podcasting is so much fun and I love it, but it also takes a lot of time sometimes, you know? I always have to squeeze it into my evenings. All right, but enough of that, and I will let you listen to my conversation with Isabel. And here it is. Here's Isabel. All right, so my guest today is Isabel. Hey, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here today. So, where are you calling from?
From in Madrid, Spain.
Madrid. And where are you from originally?
Brooklyn, New York. So New York City, basically.
Oh, wow. And so why did you choose Spain?
Ooh, that's a long story. So in 2015, I studied abroad in Morocco, and this is related because it's very close to Spain.
Uh-huh.
You could take a ferry boat from the north of Morocco to Spain. And I visited with some friends I had made during the study abroad. I was about 21, 22 years old at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to, I think it was, Tarifa and Marbella.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved the energy there. I really, really loved the energy there. I also loved Morocco, but I liked Spain more for living. Also because I speak the language. I already
Okay.
knew Spanish. Um, and so I realized that I wanted to um, leave the US eventually in a couple of years, to move to somewhere in Europe. And then after remembering that I had really liked Spain and that I knew that I knew the language, I decided to go there at first to teach English. Um,
Uh-huh.
went
Okay.
This was in the summer of 2019,
Mm-hmm.
that I ended up actually getting over to Spain. So, because I still was in college when I studied in Morocco. And so I had to finish. And then I worked for a couple of years. I got my master's. And then I decided to make the move to Spain, in 2019.
Okay. And why did you then decide on Madrid?
Well, that's the part that I didn't really choose. The thing is that I did this program called the NALCAP, and it's like a teaching program because I wanted to go with a guaranteed job, because
Uh-huh.
I had read that to get an apartment, it's pretty much required that you have a job, or if you're in
Mm-hmm.
like a relationship that one of the people has a job. And so I secured a teaching position, and it's kind of like a lottery, like they're going to place you where they're going to place you.
Ah.
And I knew that Madrid was the region of Spain, the autonomous community, I should say, that's what they call them, that had the most openings. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just chose it because I felt like I would have the best chance of getting accepted, or like, getting a position there versus somewhere else. So I chose it. I chose Spain, but I didn't actually choose Madrid, if that makes sense.
Ah, okay. So you're just like, okay, but they have many openings there, so I pinpoint to this anyway. So because I thought like you're already from a big city, you don't want to give up big city life, and that's why you also chose like big city in Spain.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did say to myself that I wanted either a big or medium sized city, because I'm not really used to like the small town kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really my
Yeah.
thing. Like being from the biggest city in the US, I was not really interested in that. But I would have preferred to be in a coastal city. I really like the
Uh-huh.
beach. So eventually my partner and I, we would like to relocate to the Catalunya area, the Barcelona area maybe.
Sure.
Um and so yeah, I would prefer actually a coastal city, but Madrid is a great city. I like that it's big, it's very convenient. There's a lot to do, there's a lot to see. There's a great food scene here. I have pretty good things to say about it, except for it just doesn't have a beach, and I'm a beach.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's hard for a landlocked city.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that program?
Sure. So it's called NALCAP. I think it stands for North American Language and Cultural Assistant Program. Yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
what it stands for. And it's geared at people from North America, specifically English speaking countries in North America, so the US and Canada. And it's run by the Spanish government, the Ministry of Education in
Ah,
Spain.
uh-huh.
And they basically allow people from the US and Canada to apply to teach. And I actually don't even think that you need to have a bachelor's. I mean, I think they prefer if you have a bachelor's degree, but they just want native English speakers, which I mean, I don't really agree with their criteria. I think it should be a bit stricter and not just be focused on whether you're native speaking or not, but that's like a whole other discussion.
So it can be from any field.
Yeah, basically, as long as
Yeah.
as long as you're a native speaker. I mean, I think they may give a little bit of priority or like preference towards people who've actually taught, because I actually was a teacher um,
Uh-huh.
in a community college to adults.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
In New York. So I had a lot of like some experience. I had a couple years of experience, like 2-3 years prior to moving. And so yeah, you can apply, and you choose basically one of the 17 autonomous communities to teach in, and they will place you in a school, and it could be anywhere in that community. So my school was actually in a small city in the community of Madrid, but it wasn't in the city of Madrid.
Uh-huh.
So my first year, I actually lived in that city, and it's called Alcalá de Henares, and it's like about an hour outside or 45 minutes outside of the Madrid center.
Mhm.
So that's basically how it works. That program.
And did you teach adults or children?
I actually taught adults for 2 years in that program. I was at they call them formación profesional. It's a like a vocational school for tourism and hospitality students. So like students who are studying to be chefs,
Right.
cooks, waiters, like hotel staff, flight attendants, like
Okay.
anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I taught, they were mostly like, they were 16 and up. Most of them were
Mhm.
adults. And so, yeah, I prefer teaching adults, definitely.
Yeah.
But I'm no longer working in that program. I wanted to really get my, like, I guess you could say my foot in the door. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
that's a great
Yeah.
expression. I wanted to get to Spain and have a job, and I had experience teaching, so I knew I would be comfortable doing
Yeah.
that. So, yeah.
And did you then figure out how you could stay when you were there?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty lucky because I have Italian citizenship through my
Ah, okay.
yeah, because they were my mom was born in Italy. So I'm like full Italian. So like Italian.
Oh, okay, so you wouldn't even, like, had that problem of, like,
No,
how
that's
can I
why I
say.
chose Europe because I thought about like I love Latin America. Like I've been to some countries in Latin America, not that many, but some. And I thought about Latin America, but I was like, I might as well go to Europe because I won't have to deal with the whole visa situation.
Right, it's easier, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the easy part for me. It's other things
Mhm.
that were harder, but yeah.
Okay, and then, after your program finished, why did you then decide to stay there?
Well, I met my boyfriend
Uh-huh, okay.
in 20 like we met online on an app during the lockdown. Um
Okay, yeah.
during the COVID lockdown and we started talking and we started seeing each other. We a year later we moved in together and yeah, so I basically yeah, like meeting my boyfriend and I did make a lot of very good friends here. And I just really liked the vibe. I really like living in Spain. I feel comfortable here. It's not perfect, but I don't think anywhere is. But
Yeah.
um yeah, that's basically one reason I stayed. And then I had found a remote job from the US as a,
Oh, that is convenient.
but I lost it. I got laid
Oh,
off.
no, okay.
The company kind of shut down. I was like writing newsletters and editing newsletters.
Mhm.
And the pay was good for here. And so
Right.
that also helped me. And so, yeah, then I eventually started my own business and yeah.
Okay, so now you got your own business. So what is it?
So yeah, I have an astrocartography business, like an astrology and astrocartography business. Like so I'm a certified astrologer and astrocartographer. And for people who don't know what astrocartography is, it's this sub-discipline of astrology, and it was invented in the 70s by a man named Jim Lewis, who's from the US. And it basically theorizes that your birth chart can be mapped against a map of the world, and
Mhm.
um, the planetary lines that overlay correspond with your birth chart relocated in different places in the world.
Okay.
And so basically, your birth chart changes when you relocate somewhere that's a significant distance away from where where you were born.
Uh-huh.
And so people can use astrocartography. And what I do with clients is I help them to um, decide where they want to relocate, whether it's abroad or within their own country or a nearby,
Uh-huh.
yeah, a nearby country or city, and just to gauge the energies and the kind of experiences that they might have in that location based on the planetary lines that fall in that location for them and their relocated
Mhm.
chart.
And
And
is that usually, then like, I mean, the result, is that usually, something they then like? Or is it like, "Oh, I haven't thought of that one," or sometimes like a complete surprise of like, "Why that place?"
what's interesting? I really love that question actually. I'm glad you asked that. It really varies, but I've noticed like lately with clients that when they're drawn to a place, there is a reason, like energetically. Like when I look
Uh-huh.
at their relocated chart there and I look at the placements and I look at some of the lines, we have this concept in astrology called the lunar nodes. And basically, the north node, your lunar node, your north node is like your kind of your soul's mission, your soul's calling, and your soul's path. And
Mhm.
so I find that a lot of people they tell me, okay, I'm really drawn to France or I don't know, Uruguay. These were my recent examples. And they had like North Node lines crossing those two countries, like of all the places in the world. And
Okay.
they were drawn to those places. So a lot of the times, energetically, I think people are just drawn to places that they're kind of like, I'm a very spiritual person, so that they're kind of fated to visit, fated to
Uh-huh.
go to. Sometimes places that people like, I find are not, or not, I don't want to say like, but that they're considering potentially relocating to, sometimes they're not, the best in my opinion, like based on what I see in the relocated chart and all, and based on their astrocartography. But more often than not, it's positive, honestly, if that makes.
Uh-huh.
But it's nice because it gives them some confirmation, or it gives them a better idea of like what kind of, because a place could be really good for career, for example, but if you're looking to
Mm-hmm.
retire and relax, that's not the best destination.
Right.
I also like to look into what that person is looking for, looking to attract into their life at a given moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah, but that's
Yeah, no. And what brought you into that field? Because it's so different. I mean, this is just untypical.
yeah. Honestly, I mean, I had been practicing astrology like independently, like on my own, since like I was like in my early 20s.
Uh-huh.
I like took courses. I've read a lot of books. I've learned a lot on the internet as well. YouTube has always been a good source. Books, like podcasts. There's this really good podcast called the Astrology Podcast. It's very famous. I really recommend it for beginners or just people who want to get into astrology but don't know where to start. Um,
Uh-huh.
and I yeah, I basically I got into the astrocartography because remember when I had said that I was really drawn to Morocco and Spain, and I didn't mention, but also Portugal. I also really loved Portugal, and I wanted to understand like why was I drawn to this part of the world
Uh-huh.
so much. And then I looked into astrocartography and I like kind of learned it over some time, and I realized that I had one of my moon lines is crossing through the three countries.
Mm,
And
mhm.
so, um, if that makes sense, yeah. So the moon line, like the moon has to do with our emotions, our emotional needs, our connection to others, how we relate to others and ourselves. And so, I feel like very emotionally fulfilled in this part of the world. I think I feel like really very different from how I did in New York, for example.
Yeah, I was wanted to ask that too. Like, do you have now a different feeling?
Compared to New York.
Yes, because of yeah, of the place that you felt you have to go to.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel very different. Like compared to when I'm in New York, there's some things about my chart, honestly, that are a bit better in New York. I do think here, certain things in my chart shifted and I became a bit more introverted than before, a bit more introspective. And that was a bit hard to get used to. But in New York, like I felt like a lot of past experiences and kind of like difficult things always kind of like creeping up on me
Mhm.
more. And it does make sense with the planetary energy there that I have, that
Okay.
I looked into. And so I realized after, I was like, yeah, this actually makes a lot of sense. Because at first I was never really skeptical about it. This was like, we're talking years ago when I kind of
Uh-huh.
like learned about it. But then, the more that I've worked with clients and, using this on myself and people I know, the more it makes a lot of sense. Like it tells
Yeah.
a whole story about a person's life. Like, because I've worked with clients who have lived in many countries and they tell me about their experiences, and I look at the astrocartography and I'm like, wow, like this is crazy.
Oh, so it's like what's the word? Um it's the same sorry, I'm missing the word there, but it's the same outcome as the chart would project.
So typically, yes.
Yeah, typically. Okay.
Typically.
And do you work with just the zodiac sign or with the exact birth date?
The birth chart. Well, you need to know the person's exact birth date and time and
Ah,
location to read a birth chart. So
okay.
it's
It's
not
not
just.
just like, hey, I'm Aquarius.
No, no, because you've got your sun sign, your moon sign, your Mercury sign, your ascendant, your house placements, and so it's you need the exact profile, I guess the word would be. Yeah.
Okay. So, and how do people find you?
I have an Instagram, I have a website. My Instagram is the handle is Your Stellar Truth. And
Mm-hmm.
then my website is yourstellartruthastrology.com. I'm also on TikTok under Your Stellar Truth. And I think that's it. Yeah. I want to get on YouTube, but I spend so much energy and time on TikTok and Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
because that's like, I don't know, that's just how I kind of started it and how I've gone. But I want to make a YouTube soon. Like I have one, but it doesn't have enough content. But the Instagram and the TikTok is very active.
Well, that's a good start too.
Yeah.
So I just make sure that people find you in the show notes. So I will post a link to you in the show notes of this podcast so
Oh
they can
yeah,
find you
thank
easier.
you. That's
Yeah, of
great.
course. So and going back, like first when you moved to Madrid, do you remember what your like the biggest cultural difference was?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have to say it's not too crazy for me because I'm from New York and people are a bit very, very harsh and direct already there.
Uh-huh.
And I thought going to Spain that people would be a bit more passive and like laid back, but in Madrid they're quite similar in demeanor. Like they're quite, I don't want to say aggressive, but very direct and very,
Okay.
very honest.
Uh-huh.
But I'm very used to that. But I find a lot of like some friends of mine kind of find that rude or annoying.
Mm, mhm.
But I think it's okay for me because that's similar to New York. But I don't know. I find like yeah, culturally there definitely are some differences. I mean, I think I thought Spain would be more conservative than the US. Then well not than the US, but than New York.
But then New York, uh-huh.
But, like, I have to say, like, people here what surprised me the most is, like and again, this is not, like, no judgment or anything, but, like, people get married very, very late here,
Uh-huh.
compared to the US. Like, I was feeling like, "Oh, I'm, like, I'm this age and I'm not married, and all my cousins are getting married at, like, 24, 25, 26."
Yeah.
But Spain, it's more like 36, 37, 38 that people
Uh-huh.
get married, so that was something that surprised me and like people date later and have kids later and so that was just something I wasn't so aware of and it just surprised me.
It's
Yeah.
funny you say that because I always think that people get married in the US so young. And that's always, I was like, why do you get married? You're just 22. Like you have
Yeah,
your
like
whole life in front of you.
in New York, I have to say, like, at least my friend group and stuff there, like, people don't get married super young at all. Like, most of my friends are not
Yeah.
married at all, there, and I'm 31, so, that's definitely saying something. But I think in other parts of the country,
Oh, for sure.
and in my family, like my extended family, like, most people are married by like 24, 25,
Yeah, yeah. But
or maybe a bit more. I don't know, around that age.
yeah. But I mean, yeah. So, okay.
So, and I think also another thing I noticed is like I really there's things about the parenting that I like here. Like I think
Hmm.
there's less of that helicopter parenting
Yeah.
and people kind of really let their kids be and be more independent. I mean, that sounds like a generalization, but I just think overall that the parents like I see the kids like really playing a lot and not super hyper like super vigilated and stuff like that. So that's another thing I really liked and eating so late, like dinner, eating
Hmm.
so late and people taking their kids out to dinner very late. I mean, I grew up going to Italy quite often and it's similar. Like parents will bring their kids out to dinner at like 10, 11 p.m. and it's not weird. But in the US, like you don't
You
see
eat
that.
dinner at 6 or like at 5:30.
Yeah, and like if parents go out to dinner late, they usually leave the kids with a babysitter or
Right.
their relative if they have someone in their family who could take care of the kid or the kids. But these are some things I've noticed that are like really interesting. More like I guess more laid back parenting, eating very late, waking up a lot later.
I guess. I mean, like, if you're up so late, then you also have to sleep in a little bit longer.
Yeah, like yes, just certain things like that. And going out, like I felt like in the US, it was a bit more typical to hang out at friends' houses because I think the houses are bigger. in the US than here. But
Mm-hmm.
here it's very much centered on like going to a terraza, which is like an outdoor bar, or
Uh-huh.
just like going to a park. Like the idea is not to hang out at home. You get what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
So in the US, it's like a lot of the times growing up, I would go to friends' houses and stuff like that. But here I see that it's more like people like to be out of the home more
So
so.
it's more outdoors versus indoors. Like in general, being
Yeah,
outdoor,
like
yes.
yeah, just like doing things outside of the house, just like
Mm-hmm.
going to bars or cafes or the mall or like just not necessarily socializing at home. It's more
Yeah.
out of the home.
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed a
Yeah.
lot here. Um which also that's something I like, but there's something nice about like hosting people in your house as well. And
Right. That is nice too sometimes, of course.
yeah.
Yeah. Is there something that you don't like?
Um
I mean, I don't like, but maybe it's just like a little bit harder to get used to.
yeah, this is gonna be a bit controversial. I, I don't know. Do I want to share this? Well, I don't know. Like I think like the culture is a lot more frugal. Like
Okay.
they don't like. I feel like people here don't really like spending money, and like they really like if you're offering a service. Like I also do still teach online sometimes English.
Uh-huh.
And when you offer a service, like they always like try to bring the price down and
Mm.
it's like, would you do that if you're buying an object at a store? No. So why are you trying to do that with me? Like, or just like
Uh-huh.
very much like people will ask like, oh, like you owe me €1 or €1 20 and like just so
Uh,
so exact. And in the US, that's just not really the way we are. Like I think
okay.
like I know there's a stereotype about Dutch people being like this. But in Spain, it's honestly get close to that. And I understand because like the salaries here are not very good and people struggle a lot. But I also think it's cultural a little bit. I don't know. But
Okay.
that's one thing that it's not that I don't like it, but it's just not the way I was kind of raised and not what I'm used to.
So
So
you're surprised when you encounter that.
yes.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, okay. Like one time I had someone ask me to send them like I think it was like a Zoom, like a Zoom is like Zelle, like here.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Someone asked me like we ordered pizza and it was like €8 each, and I asked them how much it was, and she said €8, and then I sent her €8, and she actually was €8, 36 or something, and she was
Oh,
like,
so you're missing like 36
can you send
cents.
me the 36 cents?" And I was like, What?" I was like, "Okay, sure." Like I was just I don't
Okay.
know, things like that happen a lot here. Like and I was that's one thing I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't love
Okay.
that
So
stuff.
okay, so people can expect that.
And,
But
like,
is this
oh, and the dates, like, when you date I mean, my partner is not from Spain, he's from South America,
uh-huh.
from, Venezuela, but, when there is no like, in the US, a lot of people expect, like, in straight couples, heterosexual couples, they expect the man to pay a lot or even just for everything all the time.
Mhm.
Here, that's, like, not a thing, like, at
Okay.
all. Going half and half on everything is, like, pretty much the norm here.
Okay.
And so, if people are looking for a provider, like a full provider, I don't recommend Spain. Um,
Okay. So
yeah,
don't
just
find your sugar daddy in Spain.
no, like, you're not going to. Maybe there'll be, like, a foreign investor who's just, like, riding it out here, but
Right, okay.
yeah, no.
Okay, no sugar daddies in Spain. Okay, noted. Um, so was there like a point where you at least said like, "Hey, maybe we try a different place in Spain?" You mentioned earlier you want to move further to Barcelona maybe in the future?
Yeah, me and my boyfriend we're trying this year to move to Barcelona, or not Barcelona the city, but like the outskirts a little bit.
Uh-huh.
There's like some nice smaller cities that are on the beach, and they're a lot more affordable. Because
Right.
Barcelona and Madrid, like the center, are like really expensive. Um,
Mhm.
and you just the fact that you get more space, and I'm getting to a point, like I've lived in big cities. I'd like to be near big cities, but not necessarily in them, you know.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of small cities on the beach, on the coast, that are like right outside, like 30, 40 minutes outside of Barcelona, which are really nice, that we've both been to and really like. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I've been to, oh god, a long time ago, to Tarragona, and
it's nice there. Yeah,
I heard that a lot of people investing there or like moving there.
yeah, definitely. That it's becoming more popular. The place that's really blowing up, though, like in terms of popularity, is Valencia.
Oh, Valencia, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of people are moving there. It was like, I
Mhm.
think because Forbes, or one of those like financial
Ah, okay.
magazines, rated it like the best city in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really agree with that assessment. Like, I like Valencia, but is it the best city in the world? I don't
I
think
mean, who
so.
knows? It always
But
depends on
and
the
that's also
person.
subjective. It's like everyone has their opinion on what
Yeah.
makes the city great, but it is a really nice city. I have a lot of friends there, and I could see why people love it. But that humidity down there, oof, it
Oh,
is
yeah, it's a humid. Ugh.
very humid, and
I hate that.
they just suffered the
Oh,
Don
the flood.
floods, and
Mhm. They
so
had so much rain there.
yeah, and I don't think they really want more people moving in, but
Ah.
people are going anyway, so it's kind of
So
like,
it's like the
I don't
same
really
as
want to live there.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you mentioned earlier, like the places or the spaces are so small. So can you explain your apartment a little bit? Is it different than an apartment in the US?
I mean, yeah, apartments here are typically, yeah, like a lot of them don't have elevators.
Uh
Um,
huh.
a lot of them don't have elevators.
But you don't have like also like 20 level buildings, right? It's usually
No,
a
it's
lot
usually like
smaller.
maybe 7 or 8 the most.
Uh huh.
Um, and the problem here with the apartments, like, and a lot of them, the bedrooms are a decent size, or like somewhat decent. But like maybe they won't have windows, or
Oh, they don't?
yeah, like, or it won't. It's not all of them, but some. Or the kitchen will be like, won't have an oven, or it'll have just like a tiny little electric stove, but like a really tiny one.
Uh huh.
Or like, it'll, the counter space will be super small, and the sink is super shallow.
But
Um,
you already get it all furnished?
yeah, mine, yeah, mine,
Mm
yes.
hmm.
But some of them aren't furnished. It really depends. It really
Okay.
Um, but mine, yeah, like, has like the two bedrooms, like, quite big bedrooms. Like the kitchen's a good size, but the problem is that, like, the sink, like I said, is very shallow. The counter space is not good. Um, I like when, like, mine has like a terrace, like a
Uh huh.
balcony, but a lot of them have balconies, which is nice. But just compared to what I'm used to in the US, I guess it's like the spaces are smaller, but there are houses, but they tend to be in the suburbs
Yeah, of course.
um of Madrid. And so yeah, the spaces are smaller, especially, like, I think in any big city, a lot of the times, like, the apartments are very expensive and not very spacious.
Mm hmm.
And it just seems that the trend is just exorbitant rents for places that are very mediocre. And
Yeah, okay.
so, yeah, that's the thing. But and a lot of the apartments here are very old and
Uh-huh.
need a lot of what's the word, renovations, and need a lot of work.
Yeah.
And are not well insulated. If you want like a good quality apartment, like, with good insulation and all the amenities and new, you have to pay like much more. I mean, I
I
think that's
see.
anywhere, but like especially here, I feel.
Yeah. And so and I wanna ask you, on your, yeah, your social life, did you make a lot of friends, like, from Spain, or is it very more expats? Or and how did you make friends?
That's a good question. I would say I'm pretty happy with, like my friend, like the people I've met, because, like, I feel like it's really half and half, honestly. Like, a lot of them are from Spain, or like they're Spanish people. A lot of them I met through, like, through roommates, because I only really lived with Spanish people in the beginning. Like a lot of them didn't
Mm-hmm.
speak English, so it made me, because I came with a good level of Spanish, but I did improve quite a lot,
Okay.
just living here and stuff, and
Yeah.
picking up on the nuances of the language and all that, on the patterns. But I met some people, like, definitely through the teaching program. Those were more expats. Um, I met a lot of people through like roommates and stuff like that, just through kind of through friends of friends. Like, I don't know,
Right.
it just happened so organically. Sometimes, like, I met one of my really good friends at like a rock climbing event, like,
Okay.
um, and I also did like a 1 year master's here, so I
Okay.
made quite a few friends through that. Um,
Okay, so it all like very naturally like in places you usually go. It was not that like you had to actively go out and go to, I don't know, meetups or
no, I honestly, you know what? You have to remember, I came in 2019, and what happened in 2020?
yeah, 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 exactly. So that was all
COVID.
before. Oh, so you were also like 1 year then very isolated.
It was very hard, yeah.
Were you so you were though because of your Italian citizenship, was it that you could stay? Otherwise you probably would have been
No, but even
sent home?
no, even if you had residency of any
Uh-huh.
kind, you were allowed to stay. Yeah,
Ah, okay.
here. You just couldn't leave and come back. Like,
Yeah.
once you left the country, most likely you wouldn't be able to come back in.
Right, because I remember, um, I mean, every country handled it different, but I remember that I had like a family member was a student abroad here in the US, and like all the students, they had to be sent back home to their home country.
Yeah, no, I mean, they can't do that, at least with EU citizens, they legally can't do that. If
Uh-huh.
you're an EU citizen, they can't
Yeah,
send you back.
because of the
Um,
Schengen,
no, they
probably.
can't send you back, but even people I know from the US, like Canada, like, if they were residents, like, they were able to stay, they just couldn't leave and come back. They
Right.
would lose the residency
I see.
from what I understood. I could be wrong, but that's what I understood.
Yeah. But isn't it crazy that it's already 5 years ago?
I know, oh my god.
It's
It
like half.
Well, it was really, I feel like we lost about a year and a half to 2 years, like,
Yeah.
during the COVID. It was, very interesting time. I mean, I was very isolated, like, we could take walks, but only to, like, the supermarket and, like, pharmacies and stuff. So,
Mhm.
the interactions and all that, even just getting outside, it was very limited.
Yeah.
And it was about 3-ish months, maybe a little bit more, that it was like that. So I really didn't have the opportunity to go to those kind of
Yeah.
meetups, because
Yeah, yeah.
5-6 months into my, like, moving abroad, the everything shut down for a
Mhm.
while. And even when things opened up again, it was like limited to 6 people maximum, and
Right.
had to be outdoors a lot of the time. So, you know, I've only started to go to meetups, like, in the last maybe 2 years, like,
Okay.
like the meetups that you find online, like,
Okay, but
not
you go
meeting up
to
with
them.
friends. Like, I've met up with friends and stuff before that, but,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
you
But
know
yeah, yeah, no, I meant like meetups. Meetups, meetups.
yeah, no, we couldn't for a while, so
Mm.
that's not really how I met many friends at all, honestly. Just always been kind of random, you know?
Yeah. And do you have though any downsides though for being abroad?
I mean, yeah, I think for anyone, it's hard to be away from family, like, so far. New York is like an 8-hour flight. And just, I'm very lucky. My family, they do visit, and I try to visit once a year, maybe a little less than that.
Uh-huh.
But we do see each other and we talk quite regularly. But just, missing family and friends back home. I have, like, some friends back in New York who I'm very close with, and I talk to pretty regularly, but it's not the same as seeing them. A lot of
Yeah.
them have come visit, but, how often can they come visit, and
Yeah, yeah,
how
exactly.
often can I go back there? Not so often. So, I think that's the hardest part, because I've made amazing connections here. I'm very grateful for that, but,
Mhm.
you know, um, it's not the same as, the people that you knew for so long,
Of
and,
course.
you know. So that's a challenging part of it, you know.
And is there anything you miss
Um
besides friends and family, of course?
yeah, I mean, I do miss like New York is more diverse, like
Mhm.
culturally. I miss the diversity of New York.
Okay,
Um
so, like, even Madrid is such a big place, it's not it's n just not as, or it's
no,
not div
it's not as diverse, I would say.
yeah.
Um
Yeah.
New York, and also New York is just bigger. So you're gonna have
Right.
more of everyone and everything, you know? I miss the variety of New York. I think there's just it's hard to explain, like, because New York, the really nice thing about it is that it's a big city, but it's like an hour from the mountains and an hour from the beach. You know,
Mhm.
it had all of that. It has all of that within reach.
Mhm.
And so and I miss like the fall, like the foliage, like the leaves
Mhm.
changing colors. Like that happens here, but in New York it's like way more spectacular. Like it's
Uh-huh.
more beautiful. I miss that. I miss like the fall vibes, you know, like
Yeah.
pump apple picking, pumpkin picking, like
Yeah, of
I miss
course.
Halloween over there. That's my favorite holiday, and Halloween
Uh-huh.
in Europe, like at least in Spain, just doesn't hit the same at all.
No.
It's so
It's an
like
American holiday.
I know, but I love Halloween,
Yeah,
and
I love Halloween,
I'm
mhm.
so sad that like it's not like it's celebrated here, but it's just like not the same
Yeah, not as
vibe.
much, of course.
So yeah, I miss the variety. I miss certain things about like the geographic, you know, certain traits it has,
Mhm.
characteristics. But you know, Europe, like I like being in Europe because there's all these countries nearby, and there's like the healthcare is better, infinitely better and
Yeah.
cheaper. The transportation is much better and more affordable. Um,
Then in New York?
oh yes, much better, much cheaper, much safer. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I think the benefits outweigh the cons.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are definitely some things I miss. I miss in New York, like the music scene. Like there's more like, you know, bit like artists that I like, you know, going there performing because it's New York, you know.
Yeah, 'cause,
There's
like
only one New York, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, but is it, did you get into, like, Spanish music? I mean, into the, local
Yeah,
yes.
I would say somewhat. My boyfriend is really, really into that.
Uh-huh.
He's gotten me more into it. But it's just I don't know. I prefer the music scene in New York on it, to be
Yeah,
honest
yeah, yeah.
with you. It's just I don't know, it resonates with me a bit more.
Yeah. And do you, you said earlier as well, something about, the food variety, is not as big, but what is your favorite Spanish food?
I really like the you know the tortilla de patatas, like the Spanish omelet, like the egg
Yeah,
potato
the
thing.
potatoes? Uh-huh.
It's like it's like this it's circular and it's like got like it's like kind of like imagine like a frittata, like the Italian one, but it's like thicker and
Uh-huh.
it's made either with like potatoes and onions or just potatoes. And I like it with onion. And there's a
Uh-huh.
debate of like whether you're team onion or team no onion. And I'm team onion.
Yeah, I'm team onion too.
It's so good. It's so comforting and delicious and it's like good for breakfast, good for lunch, good for dinner, good for a snack.
Uh-huh.
Like good as a snack. I think that's definitely my favorite. I also like the thing is I'm vegetarian,
Okay.
so there's a lot of things I can't really eat here. Um and so I tend to kind of cook more and just
I
make my own
see.
food or if I eat out, I don't really always go for Spanish food because like
It's so
there's
meaty.
yeah, but the cool thing is in Madrid there's like some vegan restaurants that do all the like Spanish dishes like paella and all that, but like
Mhm.
vegan version, like veganized. I'm not
Mhm.
vegan though, I'm vegetarian. So
Yeah.
like, I eat eggs and all that, but um yeah, basically that's the thing.
Yeah, no, okay, got it. So, yeah, so when you moved to, Spain, you obviously had also some certain expectations. Do you think they were met?
Um what do you mean by that?
Like, for example, were there, like, some problems you encountered that you didn't think would be a problem for you, but then in the end turned out to be like, "Oh, this is for me hard to
Oh, yes.
comprehend," or was it like, "Oh, I love it so much,
Um,
everything is
no,
fine."
no, 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 no. Like, it there's some things about living here, like, there's 2 big problems, and
Ah, okay, tell me.
gonna I'm gonna say this very directly because people need to know before they come somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, and the 2 big problems, number 1, the housing. When you look for an apartment, there are people who go months without being able to find an apartment.
Oh, wow.
Shortage. There's a huge shortage, and they ask for a lot of documents, a lot of like they want your last like 6 months pay
Oh,
stubs.
wow.
You need to like have like a fixed job. Like if you're a freelancer like me, they will most likely not rent to you.
Oh.
Um, yeah, there's a lot of discrimination in the housing. I've
Uh-huh.
heard like racial discrimination, especially more so than like gender, but like or like sexuality, but like sexual orientation. But
Mhm.
there's some. I'm not saying everyone just discriminates, like because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
people are gonna come after me, but it's a problem for sure. Um, based on like your race or national origin or religion, it happens a lot. Just in general for everyone, even Spanish people, even citizens, like finding housing is very, very complicated. It
Okay.
can take months, and you often need like a government job or like a very, very they call it the contrato indefinido, like a permanent.
One without a contract, or one with a not ending contract?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And
Uh-huh.
and if you don't have that, you need to get a guarantor, like someone who can guarantee.
It's like, hey, you get money in case, like, you cannot pay the rent anymore?
And then even then, like a lot of the times they don't want guarantors. They don't trust it because I don't know, like
Okay.
the housing situation here in the cities especially is really bad. Like and
So ho
when we looked for our apartment, um it took about I wanna say it took about 2.5 months to get approved for a place.
okay.
And this was me looking at places, I'm talking like 3 to 4 apartments a day. Like,
Oh my god.
I would go to work and I would just look for apartments every single day.
Mhm.
And so this was me actively looking and it took 2.5 months.
That is crazy. And, how does somebody who just moved to the country is gonna accomplish that if they don't have a job lined up?
I don't know.
So Madrid is not the place.
I
Go
just
somewhere else then.
you might have a chance. It's a bit easier to rent a room versus
Ah, find
if you
roommates.
if you want a whole like apartment to yourself, it's harder because there's
Yeah.
more money. Um,
Right.
there's more commitment legally.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a room, a lot of the landlords only take cash so that they could have no paper trail or record of you being a tenant, so they could evict you when they want. So,
Ah.
yeah, but it's probably if my recommendation to someone who comes here with no job or any of that would be to try and rent a room.
Mhm.
Um, or be prepared to pay upfront like 6 to 8 months worth of rent
Oh, wow,
at
that's
once.
crazy.
That's the other
That's a lot of
thing
money.
that they ask for, which technically is illegal to my knowledge. I think they can only ask for 1 or 2 months upfront, not 8, but
Mhm.
it happened to my friends, and they had
Oh,
jobs.
wow.
They had jobs too. But one was self-employed and one didn't have a very high salary,
Mm.
so that's why they yeah,
But that's
I'm telling
crazy.
you.
They then like, you even don't have a high salary, and then you get asked to pay so much money.
Yeah, so
That's
the
hard.
housing thing is really, really, really hard here. Like that was my worst. That was probably the most negative experience that I've had in this country.
Mm.
Looking for
Okay.
an apartment, my own, like our own apartment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because before that, I lived with roommates, and it was a lot easier to find a place. The requisites, the prerequisites, whatever the word is, weren't as strict. But
Mhm.
when me and my boyfriend looked for our own place, oh my goodness, like
Okay.
I can't even begin to tell you the struggle.
Okay. And what was the other thing that you wanted to say?
Yeah, the self-employed thing. being self-employed here, we pay significantly higher taxes than regular employees.
Oh, okay.
And you have to pay this thing called the cuota de autónomos, and it's like a monthly fee, and it's fixed. And even if you've made like no money one month or very little, you have to pay it. Like it's mandatory. And then
Oh,
on top of
wow.
that, you have to declare your income every 3 months, so every quarter, and pay a tax on that.
Oh, on top of that.
And then if you're selling like let's say you're selling, I don't know, courses or massages or something,
Mm-hmm.
something that's not considered an essential service. Like teaching, for example, is considered an essential service, so class
Yeah.
wouldn't get the EVA, but
Mm-hmm.
they put the EVA tax, the value added tax, the value added tax onto the services. So like every single, like for example, my readings, my astrology services, every
Mm-hmm.
single one should have a 21% tax added to it that the
Okay.
government has to take. So it's very hard to run your own business here. It's very hard
Yeah.
to even get started. The first year, the fee is lower, but then
Uh-huh.
after 1 year, and sometimes in some cases they'll extend it one more year, they raise it to like at least 300 a month, and it goes up and up and up.
Oh, it is. Okay, so it is a big chunk of money.
Yes, yes.
$300. I thought it's maybe like 40 euros or something.
No, it starts at like 85 and then it
Mm.
goes up to like I think 900.
Yeah, depending on your profession, probably.
No, depending on your income. It's
Depending on
completely
income.
dependent on your income.
Okay. But did that throw you off, like before you wanted to start your astrocartography?
I mean, I was already doing it. I was already in that system because I was working as a freelancer for that company from the US, so I had to register.
Ah,
I was
okay.
already doing it, so I was kind of used to it, but I mean, it's very stressful.
I see. So you already knew what to expect. So maybe then
Yeah,
it was a little bit easier to say like, "Hey, I gonna just try my own thing."
yeah, and like I don't know, like the salaries here, they're not great. So I was like, I'd rather do what I love and work for
Yeah.
myself and have my business and
Yeah.
be able to dedicate myself to that than you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
working for someone else and you're at the mercy of an employer, so it kind of sucks, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, though, thank you for that. I think I have all my questions answered for now. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, it was so much
Great.
fun.
This was great.
Thank you. Yeah, that was Isabel. Thank you guys for tuning in and staying for the whole episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I thought that was super interesting about astrocartography. And if you are interested in being a guest on my podcast, then why don't you just reach out to me? You can send me an email at worldscollide123pod@gmail.com, or you can also find me on Instagram and send me a message there. That's also super easy and convenient. And I am happy to have you. Okay, and that was it from this week. And I hope you tune in again next week and you have a great weekend and a great week until then. I see you soon. Bye.